For Lyons.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And look, I've just had to set the timer on my clock because I failed to bring my glasses with me this week, so I cannot see the clock over there.
Be sure, Member
and my
for Lyons,
spare pair of glasses got run over by the member for Hindmarsh this morning while we were bike riding. So anyway, and look, just before the member for Lawler leaves, I noted comments, and it surprised me a little bit that there's not more people speaking on this bill, because it really is an important bill, and anybody that cares about jobs in Australia. Albeit that I note that, and I've certainly in terms of steel, in terms of aluminium, it's absolutely critical, and I think we've all heard stories about maybe issues there where the quality of imported products isn't exactly what it is. But I suppose when it comes to the point about electrical cables, there are processes as well aside from the things that this bill addresses to consider the quality and the standards, and through Standards Australia and different things. So, whilst I take the point, I mean, I think, as I say, a lot of Australians, and I stand here really as somebody that has a business, a very important business in my electorate, that has taken a case to the Anti-Dumping Commission, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But let it not be said, Deputy Speaker, that I am somebody that is not in favour of fair, but particularly free trade. And I've been a very strong advocate for the work that the Minister Rob has done in terms of South Korea and Japan, and more recently China, in terms of expanding the opportunities for exporters in our country to take advantage of those large markets to our north. But at all times, Deputy Speaker, there should be an element of fairness in that, and I think this bill, and I note the comments from the member for Lawler in terms of the fundamental support for this legislation. It goes to what I think every Australian would expect of their legislators, and that is to the very edge of the obligations that we have under World Trade Organisation regulations. And I don't think that that's overreach. I don't think that that's unreasonable, because I think they do want governments, and I note what the previous administration had done in this area and acknowledge that, but they don't want business that will sacrifice local businesses there at any costs. Yes, it is a competitive market, and yes, anybody in business understands that competition is a critical part and a vital part of delivering better prices and ultimately better products to consumers, and that's something we should all support. So there's a number of elements to the bill before here, and as I said, I will touch on one specific business in my electorate that has been impacted by that. I look forward also to the member for Murray's contribution, because I know she has been passionate as anybody could be about her manufacturer SPC and issues that they had in terms of tomatoes, and so I won't go into details there, but I look forward to her contribution. But the bill does a number of things, and not least of all, a number of election commitments that we did make before the last election. One was to move the Anti-Dumping Commission's responsibilities from Customs into the Department of Industry, because at the end of the day it is industry that is impacted by that. And where it was possible, and the onus of proof, notwithstanding obligations that Australia rightly has under WTO guidelines, this policy has allowed the reforms to go to what is quite within the guidelines, but to the edge of what is the World Trade Organisation guidelines. They will put a much heavier onus on foreign exporters to cooperate with investigations if and when they're brought forward. And indeed, if they do not cooperate, reserving the right to impose those duties sooner. And I think sooner is the critical thing here, Deputy Speaker. The experience that I've had with Norske Skog in my electorate, and this is a big business. This is a multinational business, but the timing from their point of view, in terms of once they had put a case forward to the Anti-Dumping Commission, and ultimately were given a preliminary adverse determination, the timing of that process is problematic for many businesses, and I do appreciate the efforts and the intent that is within this bill to send those clear signals that that are designed to send and change the behaviours of those exporters that are dealing in this space, to react in a time frame that is more appropriate to the fact that we want to see that determination made in a way that allows the business either to get on with business or to at least limit the damage that is incurred. There are a number of, and the member for Lawler as well, I won't dwell on this, but she made some points around the International Trade Remedies Forum. Look, I'm not an expert, Deputy Speaker, I must say, in this area, but you know, I guess in terms of stakeholders in issues like this, you know, we want efficient mechanisms, we want flexible mechanisms, and these aren't the sort of things that you need to bring people kicking and screaming to, I don't suppose. You know, that they are where there are stakeholders engaged in a process there, where there are concerns, where there are potential cases in this instance of obviously dumping in this market. It's not going to be hard to engage with stakeholders. So on a case by case and in a specific sense, the government's intention is to be able to bring together working groups, and no doubt those working groups would include the different representation that the member for Lawler suggested. Particularly in terms of this bill, and again, Deputy Speaker, I can't understand why there aren't more people down on the list to speak to this, because this really is important. You know, I like you know that, you know, small businesses are the engine room here. The difficulty with the whole notion of the process to bring a case of anti-dumping is that it is indeed problematic for those small and medium enterprises. It's less problematic for a business like Norske Skog, whose case I'll touch on in a minute. But I'm particularly pleased to see that, you know, the initiatives within this are all designed to support small and medium enterprises there that believe they have a case to make to the Commission, and the assistance. And I think that's pretty consistent in terms of what this government is trying to do across a range of areas, not least of all started up with the Minister for Small Business, who's doing a wonderful job there to support small business, not least of all in terms of the grocery code that he has initiated in recent weeks. This is, I think, further evidence of the importance, whether it be procurement, but also in this case anti-dumping, the importance with which this government places on small businesses, and many of these businesses, as you well know, Deputy Speaker, indeed are often family businesses, and the timing issue that I touched on before is very, very problematic for some of these businesses. As I mentioned, Norske Skog is located at Boyer, just near the town of New Norfolk in my electorate, and they recently brought a case before the Anti-Dumping Commission in relation to newsprint, and as I mentioned, they had a preliminary adverse determination, and that, as much as anything else, it's about confidence. It really is. It really is about confidence for that business to know that there is a process there that is supporting local manufacturers. And if you take that notion of confidence and that notion of support for local businesses, in this case manufacturing businesses, it leads on to, I guess, you know, how you might muse about, or what you might consider to be a disincentive to invest in the future. So for example, in the case of Norske, they've obviously traditionally been involved in the production of newsprint. Now, we all know, Deputy Speaker, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that consumption of newsprint around the world is declining for reasons that we're all well aware. we read our newspapers on iPads and a whole range of other things. So this innovative business has branched out into the production of lightweight coated catalogue grade paper, and they're the only manufacturer in Australia of that product. And I guess, I'm not privy, but I guess the process by which they went through to consider whether or not the substantial investment, and there was indeed a loan from the state government at the time in Tasmania that was provided to assist them. There was also a grant from the federal government, as it was at the time, to assist them in the substantial investment, $80 million from memory, for the establishment of a new line there. And having seen that line firsthand, and the very, very high technical nature of that paper manufacturing process, and as I say, the sheen. If you pick up a newspaper and it's got a catalogue in it, that's where it's come from in Australia more often than not. There's a market totally of around 300-odd thousand tonnes out of the 400-odd thousand tonnes of paper, 300-odd thousand tonnes of lightweight coated paper in Australia, and at the moment the mill at Boyer, North Skoog, is supplying about 120, and we hope in time a little bit more than that into the Australian market. Obviously they've got advantages in terms of their ability to supply at a just-in-time basis, where product coming from overseas indeed it takes a little bit longer from there. But I come back to my fundamental point about, if we want businesses there to invest, they should have the confidence that there is in place appropriate mechanisms and a timely process, a process that is not so cost prohibitive that it's impossible, particularly for those small and medium enterprises there, to bring forward cases seeking initially preliminary adverse determinations that would be able to then incur tariffs if it's deemed to be appropriate. As I mentioned before, there has been a number of other cases that have been brought before the Anti-Dumping Commission recently, and as I say, I look forward, and I won't go into the details for the member for Murray's contribution. I know she's very passionate about this. Indeed, cheap timber, heaven only knows, Deputy Speaker, heaven only knows why a country like Australia, and as a fellow Tasmanian, why on earth we need to bring timber into this country is quite beyond us. But that's another conversation. The member for Lawler touched on indeed steel and quality issues sometimes there, but I mean ultimately that's the decision for customers. That's not an issue for this bill, but where there is product meeting a certain standard being brought in and it's being sold at a price less than what it might be in their domestic market, that's where the Anti-Dumping Commission's role comes in. Look, talking to the managing director at North Skoog about this, it really, Rod Bender, the difficult thing is for local companies trying to fight this it was difficult to prove that financial hardship from the dumping in the required amount of time. Good thing my alarm went off, Deputy Speaker, because I cannot see the clock for the life of me.
You have 1 minute left.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. So look, indeed, this is an important bill. It's a relevant bill. I note the member for Lola's concerns, but we do want efficient, flexible mechanism, much less formal, because the stakeholders involved will bring themselves to the table, and on an as-needs basis, we can bring together those working groups on specific issues that will no doubt include representation from a broad range of stakeholders. In that case, Deputy Speaker, I commend the bill to the House. Thank you.
I thank the member for Lyons for his contribution. The question now is that the amendment be agreed to. I give the call to the member for Bendigo.
Thank you, Deputy